welcome everybody. My name is Pastor Scott, and I'm so excited to have you with us here. Uh, it's just been a great thing that some of the youth have requested that we start recording our Wednesday night sermons, and so that they can catch up on them and review them, and if they weren't here, be able to come back and watch them. And it just blesses my heart so much that we have a group of young people who are so eager to hear the Word of God. And so I pray that you use this resource in conjunction to being connected and being a part of your local church. And I just pray that the Lord uses this message and blesses you through it. And so please enjoy. Tonight, does anybody know who Josiah is? Oh, really? Come on. Oh, we got one. Chris? King Josiah recovered the book of the law, and it is very good, Chris. Everybody give Chris a round of applause. I'm impressed. I didn't know if anybody would know. A lot of times Josiah gets overlooked in the Bible because Josiah does pretty much one thing in the chapters that are written about him. He has a couple of chapters. In 2 Kings, by the way, is where we're going to be if you're following along. And Josiah does some great stuff. And so what we want to do is we want to get into this, if I'm not already ahead of myself. Okay. So, first thing we do is we read the Bible in context, yes? So before we talk about King Josiah, we're going to talk about the kings that came before him. King Hezekiah, all right? Thing to remember about Hezekiah, he was a good man. He was right in the eyes of the Lord. The way he ruled his kingdom was good and just, and the Lord loved Hezekiah. He was like, dude, this is my guy. By the way, if you don't know who we're talking about, the group of people, by the way, is Judah, one of the 12 tribes of Israel. So these are God's people that these kings are ruling. And back then, if you didn't know, if you weren't royalty, you pretty much couldn't read or write. Like you were a laborer, and so a lot of people followed what the king did. If the king said, jump this high, people jumped that high. Okay, they followed what the king said because they didn't really know any better. So the king had a lot of weight on his shoulders because Hezekiah was one who led in good things that God said to do. He helped keep the law. He helped keep order. And he just, the way he ruled his kingdom, God was happy with him and he was doing great. Then the two kings before we get to Josiah. First one was his son, Hezekiah's son. His name... Hang on, I wrote the phonetic spelling. Manasseh is his name. Manasseh was Hezekiah's child, and he becomes king. And so you would think that being raised by a godly man and a guy who's a great king, that Manasseh is going to be a tremendous king as well. And so what we see is in the chapter we're going to be in is 2 Kings 21, 1 through 6 is our verse that we're going to read. And so this is what we see is Manasseh. This is when it starts talking about him. It says, 21, 1 through 6 says, Manasseh was 12 years old when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem 55 years. This is huge because back then, like kings, there was ones who like reigned like 3 months. And that was it because they got to power and somebody killed him or they died. Like, it was crazy that he had a 55-year reign. Like, it's ridiculous. So he reigned 55 years. His mother's name was Hephzibah. Hezekiah, he did evil. Manasseh, he did evil in the eyes of the Lord, following the detestable practices of the nations the Lord had driven out before the Israelites. He rebuilt the high places his father Hezekiah had destroyed. He also erected altars to Baal and made an Ashereth pole as Ahab king of Israel had done before him. He bowed down to the starry hosts and worshipped them. He built altars in the temple of the Lord, of which the Lord had said, in Jerusalem I will put my name. In the two courts of the temple of the Lord, he built altars to all the starry hosts. He sacrificed his own son in the fire, practiced divination, sought omens, and consulted mediums and spiritists. He did much evil in the eyes of the Lord, arousing his anger. So we see this guy who, his dad is an awesome ruler and right with God, and his son grows up to take the throne, and he just drops the ball. He doesn't just drop the ball, he crushes it and then grinds it into dirt and puts it in a wood chipper. Like, this guy is just doing everything opposite of what God is asking him to do. And so, I mean, all these, the Baal and the Ashereth pole and all these things, these are false idols. These are false gods, lowercase g, not a real God. There's only one real God, and that is God the Father of Jesus Christ. We know this is true. And so you see God's people, the real God, his people are following this guy now. He's leading the tribe of Judah in these wicked ways, and they're doing crazy and horrendous things. I don't know if you caught it, but the dude sacrificed his own son to the sun god. What? You thought killing your firstborn son is going to, like, make it stop, like, the sun stop shining? Like, you are out of your mind. And the other one that irks me and breaks my heart is the starry hosts, and he's talking about mediums, and if you don't know what medium is, they talk to dead people, even though that's not possible. And then you have them, the spiritualists. So these are false prophets. These are wizards and Wiccans, and it's just a bad look. And this does not sound like the Judah I know, the tribe that once followed God very closely, that under the reign of Hezekiah was walking right in the eyes of the Lord. And so this guy is just a bad man. And so we need to set the scene of this. And so after him, we see in 2 Kings 22, 1, we see, actually before that, there was another king that comes onto the scene and precedes Manasseh, and that was Amon. Amon was just as bad. He was evil too. And so Israel right now, the tribe of Judah cannot catch a break. They don't have a good king. They just have bad kings. And so 2 Kings 22:1 is where we see Josiah step onto scene. Josiah was 8 years old when he became king. He reigned in Jerusalem 31 years. His mother's name was Jedidiah, daughter of Adoniah. She was from Bozeketh. He did what was right in the eyes of the Lord and followed completely the ways of his father David, not turning aside to the right nor to the left. So finally, what do we see? We finally see Judah gets a good king. So this kid, and I say kid because the dude, I don't know if you caught it, the dude was 8 years old when they said, okay, here's a kingdom. Good luck. Like, what decrees would have you been making at 8? Like, if I was an 8-year-old and given a kingdom, I would be having a slide to get outside. I'd be having a skate park in my backyard. There would be a Taco Bell in my kingdom. Okay, like in my house, I want it in the bedroom, like a drive-through. Like, it's going to be ridiculous and stupid because I'm 8 years old. This kid is already ruling right and just in the eyes of the Lord. So this is like the most mature 8-year-old I know. But again, he reigns 33 years, I believe it said. So he has a long life ahead of him here. And so in the 18th year of Josiah's reign, someone from his kingdom found a book of the law. Like Chris was saying, somebody found a book of the law in the Lord's temple. So now remember, there was a lot of shadiness and bad things going on. The previous owner of the Lord's temple had put up in there altars and all this craziness for false gods. And so all of the good books like the Bible and all the laws and decrees of God kind of got pushed towards the back and maybe destroyed because they didn't care about it. So this kid is trying to restore everything that God had once made, and they come across this book, and it says all the rules and regulations of what God had for them. Now remember, this is Old Testament, so this was back then when you had a lot of these rules and craziness. And he said the people before him had not listened to the one thing that God said. This is why the anger of the Lord was against Judah. And so, I don't want to get ahead of myself. So 2 Kings 23, 1 through 7, it says, then the king... Okay, before I get to that. So when he found the book of the law, Josiah gets very angry, and he tears his clothes, and he's all distraught, and he's upset. Why? Why do you think Josiah is upset? Judah? So this book was lost for 2 kings, one of which reigned 55 years. The other reigned for about 3 years, I think it was. So altogether, like 3, almost 4 decades had gone by without anybody understanding or reading the will of God. And so finally this book shows up to this, at the time, I believe he was like 25, 26-year-old king. And he finally has somebody read it to him. And when he hears the will of God, the rules and regulations, he is distraught because he didn't know any better. He goes, oh my God, Judah, where did we get off course? How did we get here? This is not what we're doing. We are so far away from the will of God because I'm reading his book and what he says to do, and this ain't it. We have done the opposite. And so what we see is Josiah renews the covenant. And so 23, 1 through 7 says, then the king called together all the elders of Judah and Jerusalem. He went up to the temple of the Lord with the people of Judah, the inhabitants of Jerusalem, the priests and the prophets, all the people from the least to the greatest. He read in the hearing all the words of the book of the covenant, which had been found in the temple of the Lord. The king stood by the pillar and renewed the covenant in the presence of the Lord, to follow the Lord and keep his commandments, statutes, and decrees with all his heart and with all his soul, thus confirming the words of the covenant written in this book. Then all the people pledged themselves to the covenant. The king ordered Hilkiah, the high priest, the priest next in rank, and the doorkeeper to remove from the temple of the Lord all the articles made for Baal and the Ashereth and all the starry hosts. He burned them outside Jerusalem in the field of Kidron Valley and took the ashes to Bethel. He did away with the idolatrous priests appointed by the king of Judah to burn incense on the high places of the towns of Judah and on those around Jerusalem. Those who burned incense to Baal, to the sun and moon, to the constellations, and to all the starry hosts. He took the Ashereth pole from the temple of the Lord and ground it to powder and scattered the dust over the graves of the common people. He also tore down the quarters of the male shrine prostitutes that were in the temple of the Lord. The quarters where women did weaving for Ashereth as well. So what we see here is the main part is he brings together all of Judah and Israel's high officials, the people who are in charge of leading the country. And in their presence and in the presence of the Lord, what does he do? He renews the covenant. What's a covenant? Anyone? Timmy? A promise, absolutely. So what we see is a covenant is a pledge. It's a promise. It's me making, if I make a covenant with Jesse, okay, actually, let's not use Jesse. Let's use my wife. When I stood on 17th Street in Ocean City, Maryland at 4 p.m., it was September 20th in 2019, the day I married her. I stood there before God and before my pastor, and I promised and made a covenant to my wife that I would love her for the rest of my life, that I would always be faithful to her for the rest of my life. That is the covenant I have entered in with my wife. and I will refuse to break it. It is a promise that is not meant to be taken lightly. This isn't something where you just say, oh, God, I promise you, I'm done lying to my parents, and then you turn around and continue to lie to your parents. That is not what happens. That is what got Judah in hot water in the first place. They said, we're going to follow you, yet here they are building altars to Baal and to these people and these things that don't exist, and they're worshiping them, and they're giving all these praise to these things of the world. And God is like, guys, what are you doing? I'm the one who can help you. Do you understand why God is angry at Judah right now and why he is right to be angry? He's the one who should be receiving the credit and the glory, and they're giving away their hearts to other things. God doesn't like it when his people do that. He doesn't like it when we do that. And so what we see Josiah doing here is he's getting Judah back on track. He makes a covenant with God and then spends his time as king doing what he promised in that covenant. For the next couple of chapters, he runs around Israel and Judah and he just undoes everything that these horrible kings were doing. Every altar they built, he rips it down, and he doesn't just rip it down, he beats it. He takes it and scatters the ashes over the land. He doesn't just even let it down there. He has to burn it, and he gets rid of it completely without the possibility of being rebuilt. He takes his faith and that promise he made, and he physically acts out on it in a good way, in a righteous way. Do you understand how Josiah is doing this? So, my question to you is, what idols do we have in our lives? What idols do you have in your lives? Chris, come here. Hand these out for me. Judah, if you want to give him a hand. I'm handing out sticky notes to everybody right now because we're going to do a sermon demonstration in a minute. Matt or Michaela, can you hand out the pens? So as they're handing these out to you guys, I want you really to think about your lives. Don't sign them. I don't want to know whose is whose. But what we're going to do is, we are not going to just hear about this. You are not going to just hear me read this Bible. Gosh darn it, no. We are going to live this out if you're with me. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to do it with you. I encourage the leaders to do it with you as well. I want you to write down an idol in your life. Scott, I don't have any idols. Hogwash, we all do. Anything that challenges God in your life. Mine was drinking. I wanted to drink more than I wanted to be in church. I would spend Saturday night in the bar till 3 a.m. and I didn't get up on Sunday morning to go to church. Do you see how I put more emphasis in my life on drinking than I did on God? What is pulling you away from God in your life? And maybe it's been an old idol that is starting to creep back into your heart. Maybe it's homework. I desire to do so good in school and on my grades that I don't have time to read my Bible because I need to study. Maybe it's sports. I want to be outside practicing so much and I want to get so good that I don't need to read my Bible. I don't need to go to youth group. I don't need to go to church because I have a game. Do you see how that sits higher now than God in your life? Maybe it's a celebrity that you follow and you follow with all your heart. You worship them because you love them so much, and I love them because I just want to be around them and I think about them all the time. What is an idol? You show me where you think. Where is your mind? What do you spend your time thinking about the most? Because if it's not God, then there's something stopping you. That is what I want you to write on this piece of paper. The idol I'm writing down on my piece of paper tonight with you guys is the house search. Many of you know, me and my wife are looking for a home. In October, it's going to be a year we've been homeless and looking for a place. My daughter was born without a house to go to. How does that make you feel as a man and a leader of a family? I think about the house search on a moment-to-moment basis. And it's not right. You know why? because the house that I will receive through God is the gift. And I find myself thinking more about the gift than the gifter. See, Josiah knew if he was to lead this country, if he was to lead God's people in the right ways, what did he have to do? Did he have to focus about how awesome Josiah is and getting my name in neon lights above, the city gates so people know Josiah's the man? No, he knew I need to chase after God first and foremost. I need to think about him with all my heart and with all my soul. I need to follow him with everything I have. Then I know Judah will be taken care of. My people will be taken care of because I have sought the will and goodness of God. I am letting the house hunt get too high in my life, and it needs to be brought to its knees, and we are going to do just that tonight. I told you guys that I don't like idols, and neither does God. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take those sticky notes, we're going to go outside, and we are going to put them on something very fragile that was man-made, and it is going to be our representation for every idol written down on this piece of paper. And those of you who want to enter in to this covenant that Josiah made, the promise to God, saying, no longer will I follow these idols. This is the line in the sand that I will not cross back. From this moment forward, I want your will over mine. Now, does that mean if you mess up and let this idol into your life again or let it happen again, that you're going to be struck dead? No. That's where God's grace comes in. But does it mean, should you enter into this knowing that in your heart and in your mind you're already going to go against it? No, you shouldn't do this then. This isn't for you tonight. Just participate and be in the background. If you want to swing at our idol tonight and start to beat it, I want you physically acting out on it just like Josiah did. He went around to the idols. He went around to the problems of Judah, and he brought them to his knees physically. And that is what we are going to do tonight. Are you with me? And then, what happened with Josiah? His relationship, his spiritual relationship with God got closer. So after we go out quickly and do this demonstration, we're going to come back in here, and these altars are going to be opened up for prayer. And we are going to spiritually get close to God again.